It's the one everyone's been waiting for. Pusheen's got her popcorn out. It is the Galaxy A54 versus the Google Pixel 7a. And there's some pricing matters to go over here. At $499 versus $375, you should absolutely be picking up the Samsung device for that gap there, especially at that price range. I could say that and still acknowledge that overall, the Pixel is going to be the better all-around device. But for $499, I think you should be looking elsewhere in another category. Here, the matchup is going to be sub $400. So if someday the Pixel 7a is $399 versus like $350, if that's a $50 gap, then you should probably try to stretch and go for the 7a if you can. If it's financially possible for you, then go ahead and get the 7a because I think it's the overall better device. But I don't think there's more than the $100 gap here between these two, especially at their current prices. So let's talk about the differences between these two devices, because despite the 7a being the overall better device, the A54 has some significant advantages in some very important categories, and the first being display. The display of the A54 absolutely houses the 7a display, and I'm not just talking about the refresh rate. Okay, there is the 30 hertz difference between these two devices. You got your 90 hertz refresh rate on your 7a. You got your 120 on the A54, which is very smooth and very nice. I'm talking about brightness. The brightness here at 80% is significantly better than 100% of the 7a, and you have to have the 7a on 100% all of the time. The ease on the eyes, especially outdoors, of the A54 is significantly better than the 7a. Also, it's a better panel. Better saturation, better colors, better contrast. So if you're watching stuff, it's a better experience. Plus, I like the smaller form factor. This is going to be personal preference. I like the smaller form factor of the 6.1-inch display on the 7a. But the 6.4 on the A54 is nice because it's not necessarily taller, even though it's bigger, so it's going to be a little bit taller. It's that it's wider, so you get a nice wide canvas for hitting buttons in the UI and stuff like that. It's just a better overall experience, I think, all from just A to Z, from brightness, refresh rate, all the way down the line, color. So if your display is your main buying point, if your main factor for your decision, the A54 has a significantly better one. Performance is where the 7a comes in. Because of the Tensor G2, look, it's a flagship level processor or near flagship level processor. If you're doing intensive stuff, like I said, a lot of people are looking at these devices for video editing now. If you're looking to do video editing on one of these devices, then the 7a is clearly your choice. Multitasking is possible. I don't know why people were ragging on that. I don't want to pull it up because Facebook has names of people I know on there. I don't want to do that. But I was able to do Twitter and Facebook, no problem whatsoever. Both were scrolling, not a lot of lag. Do you have to wait an extra beat for the A54 to load up? Yeah, absolutely. But you'll be just fine. I know a lot of people were looking back and forth here and watching these videos on Twitter of somebody trying to open 20 apps at once here on your A54 and it just not doing it or something. But if you use your phone like a human, the performance on the A54 is just fine. Like we were doing, there we go. Go a little Instagram, little Twitter scroll here. Nice and smooth, 120 hertz. You're not going to have a problem as long as you use your phone like a human. If you start getting into gaming, heavier multitasking, heavier apps, well, then the Tensor G2 is absolutely going to load those up. Plus, there's some computational stuff that's going to be done a little bit faster on your 7a because of that Tensor G2. So if you're, here's how I'm going to boil it down, basically. If you're somebody, because of the speakers, let's talk about speakers real quick, and then I'll do a little conclusion on that. Speakers are significantly better on the A54 than they are on the 7a. Really nice, deep, rich sound, excellent speakers on the A54. So, speakers and display, advantage over here. Performance, camera, which we'll talk about in a moment, advantage over here. What does that equal? If you're viewing a lot of content consumption, the A54, if that's your primary use for a phone, the A54 is going to come good. If content creation is what you're most interested in, then the 7a is where you're going to want to look. And of course, that's compounded by the brilliant camera on the 7a. Listen, the A54 doesn't have a bad camera this year. It's significantly better than I thought. It's not useless. But when you get to the more advanced stuff, like the computational photography, like night photos, the 7a is going to be significantly better, especially nighttime photos. Or even not nighttime photos, even just dusk photos, low lighting photos, indoor photos where the lighting isn't ideal, you're going to notice a significant difference on the 7a versus the A54. Photos at night or less than ideal light just get so soft on the A54. So that's where you're going to notice the 7A really take charge. Battery life, another big issue for a lot of people. 6.5 hours on my Samsung Galaxy A54. 5 hours and struggling to get there on the 7A. Is that something they might update over time? Is that something they could get better with? Is that whatever? Eventually, within a year, they got the original tensor on the Pixel 6 in line, so the battery life is now good. But just take that in mind. Don't give me that adaptive battery nonsense. A lot of these devices, all these devices run Android. This is the only device that needs that much adaptive battery help out of the box. And we're talking going on a week now, and we're still suffering with 5 hours of screen on time. And when I was having problems with my modem up there, it was really draining. It was getting 4 hours of screen on time. So just understand that I don't think even when the adaptive battery gets 3 weeks or whatever long, people keep moving the bar for that. Oh, it takes a week. Oh, it's not better after a week. Oh, it takes 10 days. Oh, it's not better. Oh, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. It goes on forever. I don't think, and because of the flagship quality that you're getting here, that processor rather, that you're going to get phenomenal battery life out of this device. Let's talk about, we mentioned gaming briefly, extra 2 gigs of RAM in the 7A. So that is going to make a difference for gaming, caching more stuff, and just a difference overall in performance down the line as stuff gets more intensive. You have a touch more future-proofing with your 7A with the 8 gigs of RAM. You can get this in 8 gigs. I have it in 6, but for the price that you're going to want, I think you want to keep this around 6 gigs to take advantage of that price. Build is going to be preference. Both of them have very nice builds. You're going to get dust and water resistance on both. They went plastic frame, glass back. Google has gone plastic back, metal frame, but neither one of them feels cheap. They both feel premium. It's going to be personal preference. I like the fact that Samsung has brought this device in line with its other flagships, and the same could be said for the Pixel 7a. So that absolutely comes down to preference. Build on both of these because they're both fantastic. You get expandable storage on your A54. I mentioned the extra RAM over here where you get expandable storage, which is still a big deal for a lot of people. This is basically the most powerful premium phone that you're still going to be able to get that has expandable storage, at least here in the United States. So that's something to consider. Software, well, updates are not going to be a problem for both. Support lives are good on both of these devices now. It's preference. I happen to think that One UI 5.1 is the best, most well-optimized software on the platform on Android overall right now. I think they still have some things to iron out with Material U and the Pixel experience. You get the Pixel extras, you get Now Playing, you get the translation, you get all of that stuff that the Tensor helps with. You get all the the live dictation, you get the call, whatever. That's all excellent stuff. I think just for day-to-day usage that One UI, for me, behaves a little bit better. And a lot of times you get the updates faster on Samsung than you do on Pixel, which to me is just bizarre. Plus, look, it doesn't happen all the time, but there have been 2 instances in the last year to 18 months where monthly updates have absolutely nuked your battery life on your Pixel devices. Sometimes, some people have worse problems at that. Some people didn't have Wi-Fi on their Pixel 6 for a couple of months because of updates. Some people had Bluetooth problems. But I know for a fact, because I experienced it, that there were problems with battery life, and they just fixed one a couple weeks ago, or a week ago, where they had a server-side whatever, because one of the Google apps updated and started draining battery. You don't get a lot of that over on the Samsung side. I could purchase, goes back to quality control, but it goes back to a couple different things. I could purchase 100 A54s and know what 95% of people are experiencing. I could purchase 100 Pixels, and there will be 15 or 20 that are misbehaving in some way that I don't know what people's experience is going to be. That's just how it is. If you get a good one, these are excellent. Overall, this is better than the A54. But, if there are factors that we mentioned that the A54 is significantly better in, appeal to you, then perhaps it's better to save a couple bucks and pick up the Samsung. If you've made it this far, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, have that Steve-licious day.